Welcome back to Underdogs Rise, the podcast for those who have spent their lives feeling overlooked, underestimated or held back by the stories they've carried. I'm Chris, and today I want to share the most powerful episode I've ever recorded. For 24 years, drugs were a part of my identity, and I have really resisted this, sharing this, but I know and I feel that through this it's going to make a difference. The drugs were not just something that I used. They were something that I believed I needed. Looking back now, I can see I wasn't just addicted to the substances. I was really addicted to escaping myself. Every time life became too painful, every time grief came knocking, every time that the inner critic of shame whispered to me that I wasn't enough, I reached for something that promised me relief. For 24 years I survived. I lived in survival. This wasn't because I wanted to. It was because I didn't know any other way. I'd watched people in my life suffering, and I thought that was the way that I was meant to live my own life. This is not me casting blame out. This is me understanding how my addictions manifested. Because my real addiction was escaping grief and escaping shame, and escaping the voice in my head that was just telling me I wasn't enough. The drugs that I used simply became the vehicle. For 24 years I searched for peace. Every time I got high, I wasn't just chasing the excitement. It was relief. Relief from the thoughts I couldn't silence. And the relief from so many emotions I didn't know how to hold. And relief from a version of myself I couldn't bear to look at. There is a cruel thing about addiction, and that is that it convinces you you're protecting yourself, while it quietly steals everything that matters. It stole my confidence. It stole my relationships, and it stole years of my life I will never get back. Most painfully, for 24 years it stole my belief that I was not worthy of a different life. For years I believed I wasn't an addict trying to recover. I believed I was an addict. And that became my identity. And when your identity is built around pain, you stop believing healing belongs to people like you. Then life has a way of interrupting the story you've always been telling yourself. One of those moments was losing my dad. He wasn't perfect, none of us are. He taught me something I'll carry for the rest of my life. He told me that love isn't just measured by words. It's measured by presence and by loyalty and by showing up. By standing beside people when life becomes unbearable. And after losing him, I carried grief for a moment. And through reading at his funeral, I was able to release some of that grief. For years of my own life, I thought grief was something to just get over. And now I understand that grief is something you go around. Grief never asked me to become smaller. It asked me to become deeper. And deeper with myself. To love more. To appreciate those ordinary moments. To stop waiting for life to begin. Because tomorrow is never promised for any of us. For years of my life I honoured everyone else. And I neglected myself. I would sacrifice my own well-being to make other people comfortable. I would say yes when I just wanted to say no. I learned to hide my emotions. Because what I learned through watching people suffer was that if I showed emotions, it made me weak. And I was wrong. I'd wear so many masks depending on who I was around. My addiction wasn't the only prison that I had. People pleasing was one too. Then something extraordinary happened. I found success inside it. Later I became part of the LMA family. I attended my first WCA. Walking into that room for the first time, I carried 24 years of shame on my shoulders. I expected people to see my failures. But my God, I was surprised. They saw my potential. In those moments, I felt completely disarmed. Because for most of my life, I'd become an expert at hiding. Yet these people were encouraging me to be seen. Not the man who had learned to survive and been in survival for the majority of his life, but the man beneath all of that. For the first time in decades, I wasn't trying to earn my place. I was simply welcomed. I remember thinking in those moments, what if they've seen something in me that I've never allowed myself to see? And that question changed my life. Because a borrowed belief eventually becomes your own. The people, my friends, my family, my chosen family in LMA didn't rescue me. They reminded me that I was never beyond saving. They held up a mirror where I could see where my scars were. They challenged me to stop introducing myself to my past and to stop apologising for taking up space. To stop carrying shame that no longer belonged to me. It belonged to my past. At WCA, something shifted inside of me. Not because one single event magically healed me, because I finally understood that and realised that healing happens in connection. For years, addiction isolated me. And going through the healing process, it reunited me. It reminds me that vulnerability isn't a weakness. It never has been. It's courage without armour. Today I've had the privilege of serving as part of the team. Sometimes I stop and smile because I think about the younger version of me who was just screaming out, but I never listened. The man who believed he would never amount to anything. If only he could see this now. Not because of the titles, and not because of the achievements, because he finally found peace in ordinary moments, building connections, and just really starting to see himself. The greatest high I have ever experienced isn't drugs. It's waking up with a clear mind and a clear heart, without shame. Being able to look people in the eye. Keeping promises to myself. Laughing out aloud without having to pretend. Feeling emotions without needing to numb them. Being fully present. That was a freedom I was always searching for. The truth is, I didn't leave drugs behind. I left behind the belief that I wasn't worthy of love. And that still challenges me today. But I'm better than yesterday. I left the story that I wasn't permanently broken. I left behind shame as my identity. And at times I left behind the need to prove my value. And over my time with Success Insider, I found my self-respect. Respect became for me doing what I said I was going to do, protecting my own peace, which I am still learning to do. It meant speaking kindly to myself to the man in front of the mirror, which was me. Respect became understanding my past deserves compassion, and not just to continually punish myself. Then came honour. Honouring myself means recognising every version of me that fought to stay alive. The frightened boy, the addicted man, the grieving son, the people pleaser, the recovering human being. Because for a time I lost my humanity. I was so wrapped up with the stories, and I believed every single one of them that my mind was telling me. Every single one. Because every one of those stories that I chose to believe, they also carried me forward. Without the man that I used to be. There is no me sitting behind this microphone today. So I don't hate my past. I'm learning to thank it. Not because it was easy, but because surviving taught me how precious life really is. And it's fleeting in every single moment. Addiction doesn't have to be drugs. Addiction manifests in so many different areas of our lives. And it also affects people so differently. So if you've listened so far, and you've listened this far, and you're carrying an addiction, I want you to hear something I wish someone had told me years ago. It's never too late. You're not too damaged, you're not too far gone. The fact that you are still here means that your story is still being written. The truth is that recovery isn't becoming someone else. It's remembering who you were before fear convinced you that you had to hide. That's what Underdogs Rise is really about. giving ordinary people permission to believe in themselves again, to honour themselves, to forgive themselves, and to rise together. I honour the boy who survived. I grieve with compassion instead of resistance. I respect the man I am becoming. And I love myself enough to keep choosing growth. And every single day I rise, not because life is easy, because my life is worth living. If this episode touched your heart, share it with someone who needs reminding that their life is beyond addiction, beyond grief, and beyond shame. There is hope, there is healing, and there is another chapter waiting for you to be written. And if an underdog like me can find his way home, so can you. So can you. Until next time, underdogs rise, and we rise together.